I've just come screaming like a child out of my bed because my wife told me it's snowing. Look, I love the snow so much. I'm the biggest child in our house. It's New Year's Day. I literally came screaming like a child. Oh my goodness. I just pray that we get enough that it settles on the ground and we can make a snowman and things like that. So I just checked the weather report and I think I'm going to be disappointed. Look, it is settling. Got some snow there. Probably I could make one snowball off the top of that, table. It's still snowing just, but I don't think it's going to come to anything. I think we're going to get a few more minutes of it and then it's going to pass. Now, I've said before that we live in a frost pocket. If you drive in any direction for a few hundred yards, the temperature rises by 2 or 3 degrees. So on the weather report, it says that we're not getting any snow right now. We're just getting drizzle. And I imagine that if I got in the car and travelled in any direction, that's what would be happening. So fingers crossed, it would be lovely to have some snow. We've had snow here once on our first winter and we, enough to build a snowman and what have you. But I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm hoping, but I'm not expecting. Take our Christmas tree down. We've taken all the decorations off it, and it's about to go outside. I always get quite sad when the Christmas decorations come down. My wife's not the same. She's always ready for it, quite keen, I might say, although we disagree over that, to get the decorations down. But it always makes me a bit sad. Yeah, the children don't seem that bothered. It's just me. But anyway, this is going to be a treat for our goats. So you shouldn't let your goats eat too much evergreen, really, but in moderation, it's fine. And this Douglas fir is going to be a fantastic treat for them. They're going to be really excited to get that. And the idea now is to get it out through the door and to the goats without leaving too many needles on the ground. And realistically, us humans have very little say over that. It's all going to be down to what the tree feels like doing. But yeah, next stop, goats. I think our chances of any snow on the ground have gone, really. It's turned to sleet. And I think as the temperature warms up, which I think it will, I think we're going to get another degree or so today. It's going to turn to rain. Never mind. Pretend I'm not devastated. Here you go, girls. What's this we've got for you? Merry Christmas. You're having a nice scratch there, Sid. So that's the first of today's jobs done. I've got a tape measure with me because the next thing I want to do, I'm going to measure the old polytunnel because the outside of it has got 2 or 3 rips in it and the zips are just gone. In fact, I may as well show you. So at the moment, as you probably know, it's housing chickens. God, the ground's rock solid, isn't it, love? It got down to -4 last night, I think. So at the moment, it's housing some chickens. Ready for next season, aren't you, girls? But as you can see, like, this door is just, we've got no way of shutting that. The zip's gone. My wife stitched that up with baling twine. Might need to do this side today. And there's a rip there. But it's done 2.5 years. So I'm going to have to buy a replacement cover, and we'll use this cover for something else. There's loads of things that we can use that for. So I'm going to measure that so that I can order a replacement cover. What else? Oh, also, so I got for Christmas another polytunnel, identical basically, but the door's a bit better. So I need to find a place for that, and I'm not sure where I want to put it up. I think as soon as I work out where I want to put it up, I'll be putting it up. But I think our vegetable plot is just about the right width. I don't really want to come in on the side of the vegetable plot. I suppose what I could do, suppose I could place it sort of where that path is, just there, and that side of it. That's an option, because this here is a perennial bed now. This has got our onions in. And what I did want to do this year is actually extend our vegetable plot out a bit. So if I did that, then it wouldn't actually, we wouldn't lose any space. So that's an option. That's a good option. And obviously it's in the right place next to our vegetable bed. I'm not sure what other options I've actually got, because anywhere else on the vegetable plot is already got annual vegetables in. So I'd have to sacrifice them to put the polytunnel up, and I don't really want to do that. This has got all our strawberries in, and I quite like that being our strawberry plot. It needs a lot of thinning, which is great. That's fine by me, because the thinnings we sell. But I can't really put it on this side. And of course, the other side of the polytunnel, we have some fairly well established perennial beds. We've got asparagus, grapes, globe artichokes, and our raspberries here. Although actually, now the more I'm thinking, I think here might be the best place to go, the other side of our perennial bed, just here. Because what we're going to do once we've set it up is we're going to take about 10 of our chickens that are currently in that chicken run, you know, the one that we're struggling with the ground on, and we're going to put them in it, so they will prepare all this ground for us just right. So I think maybe we go there. I'll see what my wife says when she comes back. So I've just come and met up with my wife, who's collecting the eggs. This is our other set of hens, not the ones I was talking about just a second ago. Using the treadle feeder down there that I always talk about, that I'm really happy with. My wife's been out this morning and she said there was an inch of ice on all the water. She was out for 2 hours making sure all the animals had drink and food. So, you know, all these were frozen over. Bless her. In case you're wondering, this system is quite awkward, and this is the reason why I can't collect the eggs at the moment. I can do most things in my right hand, but when it comes to anything quite forceful, you know, where you need quite a lot of power, I just can't do it. My wrist won't take it. I know I sound like a stuck record, but that is the case. Another thing I need to get round and do at some point soon, this is my almond tree here. I don't know how well you can pick it up, but it's reaching for the sky. And that's probably about 8 foot, that top leaf up there. So I need to get out and give it a trim before it starts its spring growth. And there's a few trees that I need to just prune in that manner. And then we've got a lot of really old, well-established trees that we need to do a good winter prune on as well. So that will be coming up in the next few weeks. There's loads of jobs you can be doing this time of year, actually, especially if you've got trees and fruit trees, because this is the best time to do a lot of pruning, but particularly that, you know, long-term growth pruning on trees. Also, I'm going to be air layering one of our trees, which is a really exciting project. And basically what you do is you create a pocket on a branch or on a stem that's growing out the tree somewhere, and you create a pocket of soil and allow the tree to root in that soil that's kind of hanging in the air, and then you cut it off and transplant it. So that's another little project I've got in my mind to get done this winter. It's easy to think that with Christmas and New Year behind us, you know, we're now instantly thinking about spring, but we've got plenty of winter left. Yeah, we've got all of January to get through, all of February to get through, and not until March really that I start thinking about spring jobs. So we've got a good 8 weeks of being able to do all these winter jobs, so that's good. And of course, personally, I'll be hopefully going back to work more and more over the next few weeks, so my time at home will be less and less, so I need to make sure that I'm using it wisely. So we're just headed back down now, me and my wife, and I want to show her where I think the polytunnel could sit. I think just there, love. Extend that out. What do you think? Come out the other side of this bed, right here. So the front would be there, and then the back would be there. So you've still got access to this behind and access to there. I think it might tidy it all up a little bit. What do you think?
What about a foot over and go to the left of the...
What, leave a little path down the middle, you mean? Yeah, we could do that. That'd make a nice...
That patch of crap, because there's a load of compost.
Well, I was going to say that'd make a nice pile for a compost pile, wouldn't it, there?
Yeah,
At the back.
Push it back a bit so it's using something.
And then I thought if I get the polytunnel set up in the next couple of days, we can take some of those hens, put them in, and they'll eat all this grass up and turn it all over and fertilise it for me. Yeah, and there'll be less pressure on the space that they're in. Okay, that's the plan. Need to get out and trim feet again in the next few days as well. So there's plenty for me to be doing. It's very cold today, so I think I might spend most of the day in the house because I've got a lot to do in there as well. I want to take some of we've still got a few tomatoes in the freezer. So we took most of them out and processed them to make room for the pork, but there's a few left. So I'd like to take them out. I'd like to make some tomato ketchup. We're obviously still processing all of our hams and bacon. All right, love, are you thinking anything? What are you thinking? Okay, nothing she wants to share. I get that a lot. I'm not going to worry about sharing the bacon and ham today because I did that yesterday and the process will be identical today. But that's something I'm going to do. And yeah, maybe we'll make some ketchup together. I'm going back out. I've come back to the house and I forgot to do a couple of things, so I'm going to go back out. I forgot to measure the polytunnel, so we're going to do that next. And then the other thing that I need to do out here is I need to get some publicity shots of Sid, because I think you'll remember back along that my plan for Sid is to basically stud him out to other homesteaders, other people like us. When we tried to get hold of a stud goat this year, we really struggled. Or not a stud goat, you know, we wanted to buy a male, because what we've done in the past is we've bought a male, brought him in, studied our girls, and then sold him on again. And that's worked really well because the cost is net zero. But we weren't able to do that. They just weren't any for sale. We really struggled. I came across a couple of stud goats and I inquired as to them, but they weren't available until January. And this is 3 or 4 months ago. And then finally I saw Sid. So we bought him. And when we bought him, the plan was to do the same as before. You know, we were going to be buying him and then selling him on after his job was done. But because he's been so lovely and so friendly, and he's such a lovely character, we want to keep him, and because he's not stinky as well. So the plan is to basically stud him out and to, you know, kind of fill that gap in the market from, you know, that we experienced. And it allows us to keep him, but we don't need to keep him all year separately, because what we'd have to do obviously is separate him out from the girls when we don't want him servicing them, which is going to be most of the year. So the plan is we're going to stud him out, and he is going to be bringing in an income for us, aren't you, mate? And be super happy. Now, obviously, we're not going to send him off anywhere we wouldn't be happy for him to go. We'll be able to vet everywhere that he's going to, but it means that he'll be earning an income even when he's not servicing our girls, when he's already earning his way. It means we won't have to feed him. It means he'll be super happy because he'll be out doing what I know he loves. And it also means that we don't have to work out how we're going to separate him off and, you know, build another paddock, or work out how we're going to separate more ground, because that's, you know, it's all a fiddle, it's all a faff, it's all work. And managing the ground, as you will know here, and keeping our goats freshly moved onto new ground all the time is a challenge. So that will just make it that much harder if we have to do that with Sid for 12 months of the year, or for, let's say, 9 or 10 months of the year. If we have to have him separate, then, you know, that increases that workload, that challenge. So that's my solution to it. So that's another thing I've got to do, is basically get his publicity shots out. So I'm going to measure this now, take a few photos, and then go in the house, probably have a coffee, because, you know, then get my fingers really cold as I go through the chest freezer and navigate all of the pork meat that's in there to try and find some tomatoes to make some ketchup. So second day in a row, and we're having sausage and egg muffins again. Is there anything more homemade than this? If there is, I can't think of it. There you go, Top. So I've just been diving through our bottomless pile of frozen pork to get to these, the last of our tomatoes from the garden. We've got quite a few still, probably two carrier bags full, like this. These two smaller ones. And I'm going to make some ketchup. Now, I've made ketchup several times in the past. Never successfully. I've never made ketchup from tomatoes from the garden that our family has enjoyed. And I don't know if you're in the same boat, perhaps you are. I tried everything. I tried all the different recipes I could find online for a ketchup recipe from tomatoes. And it was just disaster after disaster. We made some decent sauces, but none of them were ketchups, not like we used to. Anyway, I found several alternative recipes now, and none of them use tomatoes as their base ingredient, but they do use tomato paste. So all that does is it adds another step to the process. So today I'm going to make tomato paste, and then if there's time, and there might not be because it's quite a long process, we're going to make tomato ketchup using the tomato paste. Now, back along I did a video all about preserving tomatoes, different ways of preserving tomatoes. And to make my tomato sauce, I spend a lot of time forcing tomatoes through a sieve. And since then, or basically about that, either that day or the day after a little bit of research, I bought this. I've not used it since. So I bought this back in summer or autumn when we were processing all the tomatoes. And I can't remember what it's called, but I will find out and I will mention it shortly. I think it's called a mouli or something like that, but it's basically almost like a mill. It's a way of processing all your tomatoes, and it takes away the job of forcing them through the sieve and does that in seconds rather than minutes or hours. So I'm going to be using that for the first time as well. So again, what we're going to have as a byproduct of this, as a byproduct of our tomato paste, is we're going to have more of this. Now this is seasoning. If you want to use a tangy tomato seasoning, this is fantastic. And what this is, I'm storing it just in an old sea salt container, but what it is all the skins and seeds of the tomatoes mixed with a little bit of salt, pepper and chili, and we put them in a dehydrator and grind them up, and then we've got this amazing tomato seasoning which goes fantastically well on things like eggs and bacon. So we'll be topping that container up as a byproduct of today's processing as well. Before we freeze any of our tomatoes, as you'll know, we put a cross in the bottom, and that means all we've got to do is put them in some hot water. Now it doesn't need to be boiling like this, just needs to be really warm, but because I've got so many frozen tomatoes, they're going to reduce that temperature really quickly. We're just going to put our tomatoes in that water, and then they're going to peel just super easy. So there we go, that's all our tomatoes in the hot water, and you can see already they're just, the skin's just coming off them. Super easy to peel. So I'm gonna peel those now and then put them in another pot, and then we're going to cook them. So just watch how easily these tomatoes are gonna peel now. The skin just falls off. And I don't even need to be overly careful about that, because we're gonna pass them through that new mouli that I bought. That's what it's called, mouli, M-O-U-L-I, food mill. And I'm really quite excited to use it. There's a couple, I've separated a few out already, but there's a couple of green tomatoes that we've popped in these bags as well. And I'm not going to use them for this paste. It would have been nice if I'd thought about it. I should have separated them out. I don't know why I didn't really, but we should have used them when I was doing all my chutneys and things in the autumn, because they could have quite happily gone in a chutney, but I'm not sure I'm going to want them in my tomato paste, because the idea is, the whole point of this tomato paste is we're going to make a really nice sweet tomato ketchup out of it that's going to rival the branded ones that you buy in the stores. And I don't know that the tartness, the sourness that we'd get from the green tomatoes are going to be very complementary towards that goal. So these little cherry tomatoes, they don't necessarily lend themselves to making the paste because they're not going to have much flesh, but they're definitely going to lend themselves to making the flavour because they're going to be so lovely and sweet. So they're going to really help with that sweetness of the ketchup that I'm after. So we all like things that are shop bought, like ketchup. It's not always straightforward to find a recipe to make your own. Like I say, I've been struggling for a ketchup recipe for a long time, and I've never found one that was really suitable for everyone in my family to use as a replacement for shop bought. And it's not until today I realised that maybe I need to look at some of the recipes that use tomato puree, tomato paste, and then start making that, because, you know, I feel like there's always a solution. Just sometimes you need to go a layer or two further back than you might otherwise. So there's a little bit of water in the bottom of this one that we're going to take out now, and then this we're finished with, and then this is our pile of tomato skins. So we've drained the water off these. Now we're just putting them on the heat, and then as they heat up, some of them are still frozen, the bigger ones right through, so as they heat up they'll do frost, and I'll be able to kind of pierce them and mash them just with my wooden spatula here. Here we are, bringing it all up to temperature. Still not quite defrosted all the way through the big ones yet, but the process from here on is so simple. It's literally just a case of the recipe I've got. It said add a little bit of salt and citric acid to it. Well, I'm not going to worry about that because we're going to be using it tomorrow. We're not worried about preserving it, and we're going to be using it in a recipe where we're going to be adding lots of other flavors anyway, so I don't need to worry about seasoning it, if you like. So basically we're going to do this, then we're going to pass it through our moulie, which kind of forces all the pulp through these little holes, and the theory is, not used one before, but the theory is that it separates and holds the seeds and skins in the top. And then once we've done that, we're just going to put it on a baking sheet or a baking tray in the oven. So I'm going to turn the oven on now and get that heating up. And yeah, it's going to take a few hours in there, but then ultimately we've got tomato puree. Simple, simple, simple. It's basically dehydrated tomato pulp, isn't it? That's going to set us up nicely for our ketchup. Now the next thing that the recipe that I want to follow calls for is onion powder. Now onion powder is something we don't have. We never ever use it because obviously we're always using fresh onions, and I'm not sure how to adapt the recipe for fresh onions given that I want to make a sauce, so I don't want any pieces in it. So I'm going to make some onion powder really quickly. These onions here, I'm just going to, and obviously these have come out of our garden, and I'm just going to slice them up nice and thin and then use our dehydrator, because this is going to be a fairly slow process. I don't know if we'll get done today, might be tomorrow that we finish it, but if I get the onions sliced and in the dehydrator, then they're going to be ready by the time the tomato puree is, for sure. Okay, so I've never dehydrated onion before, so I've done it in a few different ways, a few different thicknesses, just so I can see how long it takes to dehydrate and how it goes. So the time now is 3:45 in the afternoon, so I don't know if these are going to be ready for me to use today or not, but I'm not too worried. I can leave these in the dehydrator, I can turn the heat down, leave them in there overnight. The puree is going to be ready, I don't know again, but I would guess 2 or 3 hours time, so chances are tomorrow is going to be the rest of ketchup making, but this is all the stuff that we would have to wait for underway now, I think. So, next job is our new kitchen toy, our moulie. And as you can see, the idea is that you spin this round, and this sort of flap, this paddle here, pushes the tomatoes down through these holes. And it doesn't allow the seeds through. I'm hoping that they're as good as people say they are. Working quite well. I'm quite impressed. So every so often you go backwards, it says, to just sort of clear the bottom, and that definitely works, makes a difference. But I know from bitter experience, to get all this stuff through a sieve, goodness me, you're talking so much more work than this just to get it to the stage we're at now. So I'm actually super impressed with this. It's still a bit of work, but compared to the other options, if you watched or go back and watch my, I think the video was called something like 5 or 6 ways to preserve tomatoes. And I made a lot of tomato sauce just like this. And I did it all with a sieve and a spoon, pushing it all through there. And goodness me, the time that saved doing it this way It's unbelievable. So yeah, I'm really happy to have got that. Can't remember, but I might have actually got that from a suggestion from a viewer who mentioned it in the comments. But anyway, if that was you, thank you very much. I'm sure I thanked you at the time. But yeah, so there we go. I'm not even going to bother removing the few seeds that are in here. I think that's going to be fine for our ketchup. And yeah, so next stop, get this in the oven, dehydrating. In case you're wondering, I wouldn't waste all the electricity dehydrating this in the oven on its own. We're cooking our dinner in there at the same time. Alright, that's it. So as you can see, this is the byproduct along with the skins that I've already talked about. Not much, and it's really quite stodgy, so it's nice and dry. We've had all the pulp out of it, but it's not waste. Nothing's waste here. This is going to, we could do several things with it. We could put it back with the skins and make some more of that seasoning, or we could feed that to our animals. This, I think, is probably destined for some chickens. But even if you don't have animals, it's perfect for your compost pile. We've cooked it, don't forget. So if we hadn't cooked it and you put a load of tomato seeds on your compost pile, you're going to get a load of tomato plants. So next up for me is to have a good tidy up, a good clean up, and then we'll be just checking that that tomato paste every half an hour or so, turning it as we need to. So what we don't want is for it to dry out and sort of cook and crisp on the top. So we'll just turn it and stir it around a little bit, and then it'll just reduce down, reduce down, reduce down. We want it to reduce down to between less than a half, but more than a third, and then that's when we've got our tomato puree. Chances are, that's all we're going to do today, and we'll pick this up on the next video, probably tomorrow, as we'll finish off making our ketchup. So that's all done for today. We probably, like I say, I'll be just keeping an eye on that, and then in the morning we'll finish making our ketchup. But there's one other thing I wanted to quickly show you. This is the press that I was given for Christmas. It's a real proper job, sturdy piece of equipment, and we'll be getting lots and lots of use out of that. My father-in-law got me this, and he undoubtedly would have found it at an auction. He goes to a lot of poultry auctions. He's a poultry fanatic, and alongside the poultry that they sell there, they also have what they call dead stock, which is, you know, all sorts of bits and bobs. And of course, a lot of the same people that are into breeding and raising poultry are into self-sufficiency and using things like presses and mills and all that kind of stuff. So he every so often comes across an absolute beauty like that, and he picked that one up earlier in the year for my Christmas present, and I'm very, very grateful. So yeah, I'm excited to use that. It's just been, what a great Christmas period I've had. You know, I've been so lucky. Obviously, we're not affected as badly as most people by the lockdowns and stuff. We've now moved into tier 4, but it won't affect us very much. We're very, very lucky. I do feel sorry for all these people who live in flats, no gardens. You know, I feel for all those people, but we're very lucky. And I've had a really blessed period over the last few days. I was saying to my kids last night or the night before how these last few days have been some of the most enjoyable days of my life, particularly some of the time I've spent with the kids. We've been playing lots of board games. We've been really enjoying our family dinners. We all sit down around the table at dinner time and eat together, and it's just been a really enjoyable experience, the whole thing. And then couple that with the accomplishments that I've achieved with the pig and a few other things, and it's just, yeah, it's added up to a fantastic period for me. And I'm on a bit of a high now after the low that I was on at the end of last year with, you know, my injury and stuff. I feel like, even though I'm not completely over that yet, I'm on a high. You know, things are going really well at the moment, so fingers crossed that keeps up, and I hope that you're all having a blessed time and you're really enjoying your time, whatever it is you're doing, and that you've had a great Christmas and New Year period. Speak to you guys really soon. Cheers. The bottoms come out. So yeah, don't do that.